Nowadays, this idea of self-love is really advertised as this universal solution to all our problems. And for many years of my life, that's exactly what I believed. I had convinced myself that if I could just figure out how to find this self-love within me, then things would finally turn around in my life. And so I did everything to try and figure that out until I realized it just wasn't working. That mindset never got me anywhere. Actually, now I would go as far as to say that this idea of self-love that is really being pushed on us is a trap. It's a cycle that you get stuck in and it doesn't lead to any real progress. And so today, let's talk about that. But before we do so, as always, if you enjoy my content, feel free to support it in some way, such as liking, commenting, or subscribing. Your support is so appreciated and really helps for me to continue to create these episodes. I think the most important thing to understand when it comes to this is that self-love is easy when you are happy with who you are, when you are living a life that aligns with your morals and your values and your desires. Self-love really naturally just follows. But for so many of us, we stay stuck in a space where we are unhappy with our life, or we are unhappy with our relationships, or we are unhappy with ourselves, or we are unhappy with what our choices are creating in our life. Like something is just totally not right. And because we don't want to look at that, we tell ourselves, well, if I can just find this magical self-love within me, then things will finally get better. And mostly it doesn't get better, because actually what you really need in that moment is not self-love, it's change. How can you expect yourself to wake up every single day and feel this self-love that you are looking for if you are somehow still stuck in a life or a version of yourself that you are not happy with? Like, why are we trying to make that happen? Why was I trying to make that happen for so long? I feel like you really drive yourself to insanity trying to figure that out. And it's also not fair to expect ourselves to manage that. I found for me, things became so much easier and so much clearer when I just started to look at self-love as a result or an outcome. So it's not something that I need to be looking for in my life. It's not something that I need to be chasing. It's not this crazy, difficult code that I need to figure out how to crack. It's not something that is supposed to feel so hard, because self-love is a natural result that comes from creating a life and a self that aligns with the person you want to be in the world. When I think back to this version of myself that was struggling so much with self-love and continuously beating myself up for not being able to find it in this life that I was living, versus when I think of me now, I feel like now I know what self-love is and how to cultivate it in my life. For me, that shift did not happen because I started loving myself more. That shift happened because of change. I slowly started to change whatever was causing me to feel this lack of self-love in my life, whether that was working on my thoughts, my beliefs, my choices, my relationships, whatever it was. And then slowly self-love became something that almost just followed. In that process, slowly, self-love started to feel easy and natural. And in the moments where it was there, it almost felt like it had been there all along. Like it just started to make sense. But looking for this idea of self-love in a life that was never going to be able to give it to me would have kept me stuck in that life forever. So based on everything we just talked about, I would say self-love is a state of appreciation for yourself that comes from actions that support your physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. The more we take those actions, the more self-love naturally follows. But life is life, and life is a little bit more complicated than that. We cannot possibly expect ourselves, as much as we understand this, to try and figure that out or to have that figured out all the time. It's just not possible. And so what about the moments when things are not going to plan? What about the moments when we fail? What about the moments when something unexpected happens in our life? What about those moments when we just cannot manage to find that self-love? Something that has helped me so much with this was to to introduce and understand the idea of self-compassion in my life. So to say, in the moments where I just don't manage to create self-love in my life, option 2 is not to resort to hating myself. Option 2 is to always reach for self-compassion. When I was thinking about this, I decided to write down a few affirmations that you can tell yourself if you are currently struggling with this idea of self-love or looking to find self-compassion in your life. I find these affirmations really perfectly reflect what self-compassion is and what it feels like. And so let's just quickly read through them together. I am allowed to make mistakes. They do not define my worth. I'm not alone in my struggles. Everyone experiences hardship. I am doing the best I can with what I have right now. My worth is not dependent on my achievements. I accept myself as I am with all my imperfections. I give myself the same compassion I would give a friend. I am enough just as I am, and I acknowledge my strengths and celebrate my successes, no matter how small. And feel free to screenshot this if you want to come back to it. I will put all the questions together on the screen now in case you want to do that. But can you feel the difference between self-love and self-compassion? Self-love is there sometimes, and other times we don't manage to create it in our life. That's totally normal and human, and just that's life. But self-compassion is something that we should be reaching for in every moment, no matter how far or how close you are to the version of you want to be in the world or what you want your life to look like. In every moment, always reach for self-compassion. Another reason why I think this self-love movement can be a trap that we fall into and get stuck in is that it is very easy to start using self-love to hide behind selfishness, staying in your comfort zone, and not taking responsibility for your life. So we do all of those things and then we call them self-love. The poor term self-love is really being abused and used in ways I'm sure it never wanted to be used. So we walk through life and say, I'm going to ignore this call from my friend, even though I know they need support because I'm tired right now, and that's self-love. Or I'm going to overdo all my unhealthy habits because I deserve to treat myself, and that's self-love. Or I'm going to avoid all the difficult conversations in my relationships because I want to keep my peace, and that's self-love. This is an entire conversation that we could do a full episode on, but I just think it is so important to always remember that even though, yes, taking care of yourself and prioritizing your peace are so important, we talk about those things all the time on here, but those are just one aspect of a happy and fulfilled life. They are one piece of a bigger puzzle. It's not the answer to all our questions. But if in every moment we are just thinking, what do I need to do to create self-love? What's the most self-loving thing that I can do in this moment? At the end of the day, we will become miserable and lonely and bitter people, I think. As humans, we are really fundamentally built to crave community and expansion and growth. So we need to feel good about how we are showing up in the relationships in our life. And we continuously want to be feeling like we are growing into better and more resilient versions of ourselves. And sometimes that takes seeing the bigger picture and not doing what feels like the most self-loving thing to do in that moment. Sometimes self-love is just not the answer. So you decide to be there for that friend of yours who needs support, even if you're tired, because that short-term moment of exhaustion is not more important than being there for someone who you care about. Or you continue to stay committed to the discipline in your life, even if that means doing things that you don't feel like doing, because you can see the bigger picture and how all of that will contribute to you achieving the goals that you have for yourself. And you stay open to difficult conversations, even if that means not prioritizing your peace sometimes, because that is how we grow and evolve in relationships. And you continue to push yourself out of your comfort zone because that's where growth happens. And in all of that, we will find a type of fulfillment that self-love in itself will never be able to provide in our life.